Hello class 10. Children, here I am going to begin poem 1 of your course, that is Dust of Snow, written by Robert Frost. Let's start the explanation. Well children, let's get the introduction about the poem Dust of Snow. Dust of Snow by Robert Frost illustrates the extraordinary curative power of the nature and the small things and the changes of our life. It tells how nature cures everything, whether it is a full mood or illness of someone. The author here is experiencing one such bad day of his life when a crow's movement near the hemlock tree dusted snow upon him. The snow instantly makes him happier. His day gets tones better. The supremacy of the nature made him realize his problems. Despite the fact that hemlock tree is a poisonous tree, but his combination here with the crow again indicates about something bad omen. And fear and the dooms which is utilized in the poem, it converts into the career of the happiness. Here the poet tries to spotlight that sometimes creatures linked with negative aspects of life can often bring change and happiness to our world. Being outdoors in nature with all its unpredictability can also benefit anyone, and anywhere, at any time. Let's now understand the poem. Let's know about the poet of the poem Dust of Snow. Robert Frost. His full name is Robert Lee Frost. He was born in San Francisco on March 26, 1874. His father belonged to New England and his mother was a Scottish immigrant from Edinburgh. In 1920s, Frost was the most celebrated poet in America. His poetical works include A Boy's Will in the year 1913, north of Boston in the year 1914, New Hampshire in the year 1923, A Further Range in the year 1936, Staplebush in the year 1947. But his most popular book was In the Clearing, that was published in the year 1962. The poem Dust of Snow was published in his book New Hampshire in the year 1923. This collection brought the Pulitzer Prize for this great poet. Otherwise, we must know Frost was much admired for the depiction of the rural life in his poetry. Even his command of the American colloquial speech and realistic verse used in his work portrayed the ordinary people in everyday situation. It is mentioned how in the winter season once the poet was sitting in a bad mood quietly under the hemlock tree, which was covered all over with the snow. But on spur a moment, a crow sitting on the branch of the tree shakes the tree, and the snow from the tree, it simultaneously falls on the poet. The snow is cold and velvety to touch, which changes the poet's mood from bitterness to the happiness and excitement. This fills the poet with a refreshing feeling. This moment was very compelling and saves us day from the disappointment. The black crow usually, symbolizes bad omen and emblem of death and fear. Since the crow is not related to the goodwill, it is quite ironic how the poet has explained how the crow, which is the symbolism of some bad omen, he did the honest deed by shaking off the snow and dispelling the sadness of the poet. Children, something more you have to learn here about the poem. Frost here he has not used some other trees like oak, maple, or pine. He uses the hemlock tree, which is typically related to poison and toxicity. Similarly, he has also used dust, which is useless for anyone, and nobody wants to be liking the dust, I feel. But the poet uses it as an impulse that brings positive thoughts in his mind. Children, you should see how the toxic hemlock tree covered in pure white snow and a person who is depressed getting to kill himself and walking under the tree, and how here the black crow throws the snow on him. The feelings of the pure cold snow change his mind about sacrificing his life. And also, on the contrary, he then decides to forget the regrets of his life and sorrow to follow the path of healing his inner soul. Let's see how these non bad things were going to change his life here in the poem. Well, children, let's start the poem Dust of Snow. Here the poet recounts a small incident of his life that changes the mood and life of the poet. Though it seems very simple incident, but it has a great significance. So let's see what happens. The way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree. Shook, children, that means shake. Dust of snow, it means the particles of snow. Hemlock tree, as I've told you, that means a poisonous plant or a tree with small white flowers. So as the poet is walking in a bad mood under the hemlock tree, here the poet mentions while he was passing by the hemlock tree that is considered to be the poisonous tree. He says that while he was passing by the tree, suddenly a crow that was sitting above the tree, he shook the tree, and then the fine particles of the snow, so these fall from the tree on the poet. Here, children, you must notice the two agents of nature here, the hemlock tree and the crow, which are mentioned here, are the signifiers of the sadness and gloom. Just like the poet's mood was very sad and depressed in the opening scene that is mentioned here in the poem. See, next has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued. Rued, that means to hold something as a regret or to feel sorry about something. So here the poet makes confession that he has though a very terrible morning that day, but with the falling of the snow on his head, It lifted the mood of the poet instantly. He said that though he had spent his full day in the bad mood, but the rest of the day was saved by the crow and the hemlock tree. Thus, the soft and the cool snow that fell on the poet, it converts the state of sadness of the poet into the happiness. He started feeling refreshed and peaceful. Hence, the simple incident helped him to enjoy the remaining part of the day. He says that generally hemlock tree and the crow are used for the negative references. But here the poet has used them beautifully to portray the inauspicious things. Children, generally, hemlock tree and crow are used to symbolize the negative aspects. But poet has used both these negative symbols here to portray how inauspicious things can also bring joy and happiness to our minds. So that's why he says the simple activity of the crow on the hemlock tree, it changes the depressive mood of the poet. That's why he does not want to get lost himself in the sorrow. He decided that he would not waste the rest part of his day repenting about his past actions. But now, with the change of mood, he further decides that he would now utilize the rest of the day doing some useful or the positive things in his life. Hence, the poem conveys a message that nothing in life is small. Even the small things can bring the positive changes in our life. Also, it shows us that if we take things positively in our life, situation do change for better. Even the small help can do good for others and could bring the big differences. Just we have to believe on the random acts of kindness which we are doing in our life. Hence, noticing and appreciating all the tiny things in our life can make us happier longer. Hence, it teaches us the lesson that thus the poem teaches us, thus the poem teaches us the lesson that every small act in life can illuminate our soul and motivate us to do better. Hence, the poem teaches us. Thus, the poem teaches us the lesson that every small act in our life can illuminate our soul and motivate us to do better. Children, this is a time to explore the literary devices used in the poem Dust of Snow. First device used is rhyme scheme. Rhyme scheme, is the pattern of sounds that repeats at the end of a line or stanza. Sometimes rhyme scheme change line by line. Sometimes it continues throughout the poem. So you must have to know the difference. Children, see the and word of the first line, that is crow. Then check the second line's ending word, that is me. In the third line of the first stanza, the word given is snow. And in the fourth line's ending line, in the first stanza is given word tree. See here, the ending word of the first line is rhyming with the third line, crow and snow. So they are sounding same. So here you will use AA rhyme scheme. Now for the second and fourth lines last words, me and she, so they are also sounding similar. So here you will use rhyme scheme B and B. You are supposed to write this rhyme scheme as A, B, A, B. See how you have to mention? I've written here. Children, do check the screen and follow the same pattern while writing into your notebooks and even in your exams. Now let's proceed to the second stanza. See the last word of second stanza's first line, heart word is given. Then the second line's last word is mood. Third line's last word is part. And fourth line's last word is rude. So here the heart word is rhyming with part. Use the rhyme scheme C. Then for mood and rude, use the similar rhyme scheme. So you should write it like this: C, D, C, D. Write in this pattern. Poetic device used here is inversion. Children, one, the poet changes the structure of a sentence to create the rhyme. In his work, this poetic license is called inversion. See, in stanza 1, inversion can be seen. The sentence is the way a crow shook down on me. So here the poet has used the poetic license. So to create the sound and the music, he has brought this shifting. Next poetic device is assonance. Children, one, there is a prominence of one vowel sound throughout a line, that is called the assonance. Check the stanza 1, its second line. Here the sentence is shook down on me. Here oo sound is prominent, so that is a use of assonance. Now next poetic device used here is enjambment. See, here in this whole poem there is no punctuation mark in between. So from the beginning till end, only the single full stop is given at the end of the whole poem. So this is called enjambment. Okay, where you find the same sentence continues to the next line without the use of any punctuation mark. So that is called the enjambment. I think you are clear about this poetic device. Children, I hope you have well understood the explanation. For all your queries and doubts, you can ring me or text me personally. Must send your feedbacks. Thank you for your support.